a king who spends most of his reign in luxury hotels thousands of miles from his own country. A secret harem of women flown across the world at taxpayer expense. A $30 billion fortune shielded from public scrutiny. A public coronation unlike any in modern times, steeped in ancient rituals and guarded by fear. Lavish spending on private jets, gold-plated palaces, and surreal personal whims, while political unrest boils at home. A mysterious disappearance of his official consort, followed by her sudden reappearance. And behind it all, a shadowy grip on the Thai government, military, and courts. The world calls him the Playboy King. His subjects dare not speak his name aloud. And yet, his every move shapes the destiny of Thailand. But to understand how King Vajiralongkorn became one of the most feared and most peculiar monarchs alive, we have to go back to the day he was never meant to be king at all. He was born on July 28, 1952, inside the polished walls of the Amphorn Sathan Residential Hall, a European-style mansion nestled in Bangkok's Dusit Palace, built by a past monarch dreaming of grand European aesthetics in Siamese soil. Maha Vajiralongkorn was the only son among 4 children of King Bhumibol Adulyadej and Queen Sirikit, a birth that carried colossal expectations. His sister, Princess Ubol Ratana, was already growing into public life, but in the royal court, everyone knew the future would fall on him. By age 4, he received a royal name crafted by the Supreme Patriarch, a string of titles so elaborate it took weeks to parse. Yet, under all those syllables was a boy growing up in a gilded cage, one where destiny had already been written. His early schooling began at Chitralada School inside the palace grounds. As a youngster, he was shielded, protected, and kept distant from the clutter of the common world. When he turned 13, that all changed. He was sent to England for prep school, then to Millfield in Somerset, where academics met boarding school rough edges with equal intensity. There, stories say, he found himself drawn more to fast cars and adrenaline than textbooks. One palace aide would later describe him as someone who craved freedom wherever he could find it. A sharp contrast to his father, who embodied calm restraint and nation-building for decades. In 1970, he shifted continents again, to Australia for a 5-week military course. But that was just the prelude. In 1972, he enrolled at the Royal Military College, Duntroon, in Canberra. Over 4 years, split between Australian Army training and a liberal arts degree at the University of New South Wales, the young prince earned his stripes and a taste for command. Then came December 28, 1972, a quiet ceremony in the Ananta Samakom Throne Hall, where a 20-year-old Vajiralongkorn was officially named Crown Prince. Yet the quiet ceremony masked a storm of expectations. The press noted his lack of statesman-like gravitas. Some whispered that Princess Sirindhorn, adored and composed, would have made the sweeter heir. Graduation came in 1976 with mixed honors. He became a reserve lieutenant and pilot. His second degree in law came later, in 1982, from Sukhothai Thammathirat Open University. It was an academic bow tied late, yet another appointment strategically placed along a royal timeline. Back home, the promise of duty flickered against a restless spirit. While his father crafted a vision of duty and quiet ceremony, Vajiralongkorn was often drawn to the opposite: short-lived romances, fast cars, and a public that sometimes bristled at his unfiltered image. A mother once teased that he was a bit of a Don Juan, a line that carried both affection and exasperation. Still, through whispers and wings, a king was waiting in the wings, perhaps not for himself, but for everyone else. Vajiralongkorn's story wasn't scripted like a fairy tale. It was messier, more human. And by the time the crown came calling, both palace and public would know. They'd inherited not the calculated calm of Bhumibol, but a storm painted in velvet and gold. What no one saw then was how his personal electric charge, those scandals, lovers, and restless nights, would collide with Thailand's political currents, reshaping institutions and identity. But that collision was coming fast. When a royal throne awaits, personal lives can become state secrets, sometimes hidden in plain sight. For Prince Vajiralongkorn, his passage to the throne wasn't just a succession. It was a saga tangled in public scandal, palace intrigue, and carefully orchestrated drama. In 1977, Vajiralongkorn married his cousin, Princess Swamsawali Kittiakara, and a daughter, Princess Bhadrakitiyabha, followed. But behind palace gates, his heart drifted. He soon began a relationship with actress Yuvadita Pulprasarth. Their affair was no secret. She bore him 5 children. When Swamsawali finally agreed to divorce in 1993, the prince publicly blamed her for the marriage's failure, a claim she couldn't contest under Thailand's strict lèse-majesté laws. The courtroom drama ended in a July divorce, shaking royal norms. The plot thickened in 1994 when he officially married Yuvadita in a ceremony at the palace, blessed by the king and princess mother, but noticeably not by the queen. Despite that intimate union, 2 years later, she fled to Britain with their children. In response, Vajiralongkorn plastered palace walls with posters accusing her publicly of infidelity. He even arranged for their daughter to be returned to Thailand, while he stripped Yuvadita and their sons of titles and passports. She resettled in the U.S. as Sujarine Vivacharawongse. Fast forward to February 2001, he married Sri Rasmi Suwadi, a commoner and palace aide. Public announcement didn't come until 2005. In 2005, she gave birth to his son, Dipankorn Rasmijodi, briefly the heir apparent. But 2014 brought disgrace. Vajiralongkorn accused Sri Rasmi's family of corruption. Her relatives were stripped of royal status. Some were arrested and sentenced for lèse-majesté and other crimes. Sri Rasmi, relinquishing her title, accepted a payout of 200 million baht, around $6 million, and faded into obscurity. Some say she lives under house arrest as a nun-like figure. By May 2019, after his coronation was set, the king dropped another bombshell. Just 3 days before the ceremony, he wed his bodyguard, former flight attendant Suthida Tijai, who was swiftly promoted to queen. The surprise, announced in the Royal Gazette and broadcast nationally, reflected a palace defined by spontaneity and spectacle. 2019 ushered in the return of a title not seen in nearly a century. The king named his longtime confidant, Sininat Wongvajirapakdi, royal noble consort. She appeared in photos cycling and flying planes, odd glimpses into an unorthodox inner circle. But loyalty in that circle is fragile. By October, Sininat was stripped of all ranks and titles for alleged disloyalty, accused of overreaching and trying to equal the queen's position. Within days, 6 palace officials were fired for extremely evil conduct. Then, in a twist itself worthy of court drama, she was reinstated in September 2020 with full honors, the palace declaring she'd remained untainted. Through these scandals, what emerges is more than sensational gossip. It's a monarchy grappling with identity. Each divorce, exile, and abrupt appointment deepened fissures in the royal image. Once a symbol of unity, now a mirror of instability. For Thailand, the man meant to unify became the center of sensational rumors. Still, speaking ill of the king is punishable by law. throwing criticism into whispers and shadows. Yet the most consequential chapter wasn't the scandals themselves, it was how they set the stage for his reign. Next, we'll see how he leveraged these personal dramas to tighten control over the Crown Property Bureau, military, and constitution itself, fogging the boundaries between private life and national power. When crowns change hands, institutions bend. And within months of stepping onto the throne, King Maha Vajiralongkorn made one thing clear: the monarchy was reborn, under his control. In July 2017, the monarchy's vast financial empire, the Crown Property Bureau, CPB, became something else entirely: the king's personal fortune. A constitutional change granted him full ownership of multi-billion-dollar assets, from prime real estate to majority stakes in giants like Siam Cement and Siam Commercial Bank. What had once been held in trust for the institution of the monarchy was now firmly in the hands of the man who wore the robe. Overnight, the illusion of a symbolic constitutional monarch gave way to a sovereign with unchecked economic firepower. Just 6 months earlier, the king made an extraordinary request to the interim parliament: overhaul the constitution to grant him more autonomy, even if he lived abroad. In a rarely reported move, he eliminated the stipulation requiring a regent when the king travels, an acknowledgement of his frequent stays in Germany. He also removed clauses that placed limits on royal powers during national emergencies, effectively strengthening his ability to act without oversight from courts or councils. The monarchy was no longer a figurehead, it was a regime retooled. In late 2019, a royal decree sent shockwaves through Thailand's power structure. 2 elite infantry regiments, once part of the Royal Thai Army, were reassigned directly under the Royal Security Command, reporting to the king himself. These units were not minor auxiliaries. They were heavily armed, strategically positioned within Bangkok, and had been key players in past coups. Now, they belonged to the monarch's personal command. A senior scholar would later note that the move aligned the military and monarchy in a way unseen since the era of absolute rule.
Privy Council replaced 2, the corridors of the palace changed. The king reshuffled the Privy Council, sidelining long-standing advisors with governmental ties and elevating younger loyalists with military connections. Power shifted from quiet halls to palace code blue, command from afar, styled by allegiance, not tradition. In theory, these moves rebuilt the monarchy into a modern fortress. But in practice, they alienated a rising generation. From 2020 onward, Thai youth, some of whom had been shielded from overt royal critique for decades, took to the streets in unprecedented numbers. They demanded transparency, accountability, and restrictions on royal power. Even Thailand's strict lèse-majesté law couldn't silence them. A veteran analyst remarked that, contrary to appearances, Vajiralongkorn's consolidation of power might have weakened the monarchy in the long run. The distance he created between crown and commoner bred mistrust and public resentment. The quiet, absolute monarch. By 2020, the monarchy had been reshaped into a new form, a crown that ruled not through ceremony, but through silent command. Next, we'll step inside the strange universe behind this Iron Crown, where cash, whim, and fantasy replace tradition. If monarchy were a mirror, this reflection would be warped. Imagine the kingdom's most sacred institution ripped open, revealing velvet drapes and a private circus behind them. In July 2016, a video went viral, though not in Thailand. It showed the crown prince strolling through a Munich shopping mall wearing a bright yellow crop top that exposed tattoos crawling over his torso and arms, alongside a woman believed to be one of his consorts. It was surreal, irreverent, and immediately scandalous. Facebook blocked the clip for Thai users under lèse-majesté laws. The Thai government even threatened legal action against Facebook unless every copy was removed. The image burrowed into public imagination. Here was a future king stripped not of authority but of decorum. For ordinary Thais raised on symbols of royal sanctity, it wasn't funny, it was unsettling. Then there was Fufu, a miniature poodle with more status than most courtiers. At a gala attended by the US ambassador, Fufu stormed the stage in formal attire, complete with paw mitts, and lapped water from a guest's glass. He was also officially enlisted as an Air Chief Marshal in the Royal Thai Air Force. When he died in 2015, the palace held a 4-day Buddhist funeral. A dog with more pomp than many citizens. Scandal? Maybe not. But image? Utterly unpresidential. And when a woman in a flimsy G-string, rumored to be his third wife, fed him cake by candlelight, it became the subject of whispered gossip, too provocative to name. One British report revealed he flew to Germany with 30 royal poodles and an entourage of 250 people, including former mistresses, setting up at a luxury hotel near the Alps during the pandemic. To Thais watching, this wasn't playful. It was grotesque opulence, especially as protests raged at home. In 2019, the palace itself released images of his royal noble consort, Sininat, in combat fatigues and a crop top, piloting light aircraft. One photo even showed the consort, the king, and a poodle together, like something out of a fever dream. Thousands viewing the palace website triggered a crash, a modern emblem of how bizarre fascination overtakes protocol. These weren't just headlines. For Thais, they felt like breaches. A royal family slipping out of ceremonial reverence and into self-indulgent performance art. Embarrassment seeing a king in a crop top, teenagers feeding dogs in G-strings, or armies of poodles lounging in hotels. How do you make sense of that? These images circulated as hushed memes inside Thailand, because they were dangerous to share, not because they were fake. But beneath the theatrics, crop tops, court dogs, jet-set poodles, lay an even more powerful performance. Politics in Thailand has never been a quiet stage, but under King Maha Vajiralongkorn, known internationally as Rama X, its shadows have deepened. Officially, Thailand is a constitutional monarchy. The king's role is ceremonial, above politics. Yet according to the New York Times, the king has in recent years consolidated powers unseen in decades. In 2017, a new constitution was promulgated, granting him greater control over the appointment of key royal and military positions. Reuters reported that in 2018, the king took direct command of 2 key army units based in Bangkok, an unusual step for a constitutional monarch. Analysts interviewed by the BBC described this as a decisive expansion of royal authority into security matters. At the same time, his relationship with Thailand's political establishment has remained complex. The Bangkok Post documented how Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha's government worked closely with the palace, passing laws that transferred billions of dollars worth of Crown Property Bureau assets directly into the king's personal control. Silent curtailing dissent, criminalizing criticism. Thailand's lèse-majesté law, or Article 112, hands draconian sentences for perceived insults to the monarchy, 15 years per offense. But in 2024, a court extended one man's sentence to a staggering 50 years for satirical online content. Meanwhile, academics like American lecturer Paul Chambers face arrest nearly unheard of for foreigners, simply for association with a political webinar. These aren't outliers. They are warnings wrapped in legalese. The message rings clear. Dissent isn't just discouraged, it's criminal. Youth-led revolt meets judicial iron fist. But as royal influence grew, so did public dissent. In 2020, The Guardian reported unprecedented youth-led demonstrations calling for political reform, including calls for greater transparency in royal finances. These rallies, rare in modern Thai history, drew tens of thousands to the streets of Bangkok and other cities. But the response from the state was swift and brutal. The Constitutional Court ruled that calls for monarchy reform amounted to an attempt to overthrow the monarchy, silencing voices and sparking a wave of criminal charges under Article 112. Hundreds of protesters were prosecuted. Public spaces became echo chambers of fear. Emotions ran high. Anger at injustice, fear of consequences, heartbreak at watching young lives marred by prison bars. The Move Forward Party, riding the wave of youth energy, won a stunning victory in the 2023 general election. Their platform included ambitious reforms, like rewriting lèse majesté, but the system refused to budge. The Constitutional Court ruled those ideas unconstitutional, equating them to a threat to the monarchy itself. The party was ultimately dissolved, its leaders banned from politics for a decade. For many users of social media or young voters, the ruling felt like betrayal. They had embraced the system, only to see it turn around and exclude them from wanting change. Far from the humid streets of Bangkok, in the alpine town of Garmisch-Partenkirchen, stands the Grand Hotel Sonnenbichl, a place that, for a time, became the unlikely seat of Thailand's monarchy. According to the Times and Der Spiegel, King Maha Vajiralongkorn spent extended periods here, particularly during the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic. Reports claimed he reserved an entire floor of the hotel, guarded by a rotating team of armed security personnel. Local residents told The Independent they occasionally glimpsed the monarch cycling through the Bavarian countryside, dressed in casual sportswear, accompanied by an entourage. Bild, a German tabloid, alleged the king hosted gatherings described as lavish by unnamed hotel staff, though these claims were never officially confirmed by the palace. The image of a monarch living thousands of kilometers from home stirred political murmurs in Germany. In 2020, Deutsche Welle reported that members of the German Bundestag raised questions about whether it was appropriate for a foreign head of state to conduct state affairs from German soil. The German foreign minister at the time publicly acknowledged the unusual situation, stating that the government was watching it closely. Meanwhile, in Thailand, the king's prolonged absence became a sensitive subject. During the height of the pandemic, when the country faced economic hardship and youth-led protests, critics, often speaking from abroad to avoid legal risk, questioned the symbolism of a monarch ruling from afar. Supporters pointed out that the king eventually returned for important ceremonies and official duties, maintaining his constitutional role. But for others, the image of a ruler in a Bavarian hotel, while political tensions simmered in Bangkok, became an enduring symbol of distance, both physical and emotional. For a monarch who cannot be openly criticized, perhaps living far away is the ultimate shield. But shields, no matter how polished, cannot block the gaze of the world forever. Thailand has always been a land of rituals, where the monarchy stands as a bridge between the divine and the earthly. For centuries, the crown has been the heartbeat of the nation, but even the most sacred heart can falter. Today, Thailand stands at a crossroads. The old world, bound by reverence and unspoken rules, collides with a new one, born from the internet, global ideas, and voices no longer content to whisper. Under the law, criticism of the monarchy carries prison terms as long as some people's lives. Public debate is silenced, but silence does not erase the question. It only drives it deeper where it grows. Analysts wonder, can a monarchy survive untouched in a world that demands transparency? Can a ruler live half a world away and still be the beating heart of a kingdom? Some say the monarchy must adapt, become a symbol that unites without fear. Others warn that change itself is the threat. In either case, the future will not wait. Every king rules with the belief that the crown is eternal. But history remembers not the gold, only the head that wore it.